The exclusion of women from vital positions of power is a major barrier to women's equality in Britain. Men outnumber women nearly 5 to 1 in Westminster, and the number of female MPs has increased by just 4.1% in 15 years. With just weeks to go before the general election, we spoke to Katie Ghose, Director of the Electoral Reform Society, about the deficit of women in politics and the effect it has on democracy.
In around 350 constituencies, there has never been a female MP. There are lots of reasons for this. One of them is our old-fashioned electoral system, which means we have hundreds of safe seats where you have an incumbent, usually a man, who's been there for decades. So that means it's quite hard for the parties to put women into those seats. There are lots of other reasons as well. Some women talk about the old-fashioned attitudes they still come across, even from their fellow party members, when they're choosing between a man and a woman for a seat. And there are other practical obstacles as well that can be put in the way of women putting themselves forward. But in the 21st century, we should be able to find 325 women and 325 men to make up our national parliament. Around a fifth of MPs are women, which is still pretty poor. We are predicting an increase at the May 2015 general election. We think we might end up with around 192 female MPs, which is a good step forward, but we shouldn't forget that that will only take us to nearly a third of MPs as women. It's interesting that businesses, I think, have woken up to the value of having people from all walks of life running their companies, whether that's at the executive level or on boards. And I think, sadly, what we see in politics is we're actually losing out on the talents of half the population. And I think if you're going to make good political decisions for everybody who lives in our society, you need men and women, you need people from all walks of life, and you really need a parliament that reflects and represents Britain today.
There are currently 148 female MPs out of a total of 650 members of parliament. Can we really have a democracy when the last parliament looks so little like the people it was supposed to represent?
One of the reasons that people are giving for feeling very disconnected, even alienated from party politics, is that they look at Parliament and they don't see people like me, people who are living in their neighbourhoods and in their communities. So we think the democratic deficit is made worse, if you like, by the fact that we don't have equal numbers of women and men in Parliament, and also making the top decisions in the Cabinet as well. So the first past the post electoral system is the world's worst system for trying to get equal numbers of women and men. So we really want that replaced by a fairer proportional system, which encourages the parties to put forward a broad range of women and men to the electorate, and can really help if it's combined with other measures as well to increase the number of women in politics and public life. But we also want the parties more fundamentally to modernise and open up and reach out to a much wider range of people among society. And I think if you could start in primary schools and getting young girls and young boys really kind of interested and engaged in politics then that would be a good foundation, if you like, that we could build on throughout their lives. And I think if you did ask a lot of people to kind of imagine what an MP would be, it would probably be more likely to be a male figure, and that can only really change when you've got equal numbers of women and men MPs, but also women as councillors. We've got a terribly poor record. Only around a third of councillors in England will be women, and that's been a really kind of static figure. So we really need to see women of all ages and all walks of life in all the kind of different layers of government and politics.